So, welcome to the 1990 series. My name's Amanda O'Shea, the Loving Life Coach from the Serendipity Experience. And I have with me today Mr. Dave Elleray from the Lake District, but is in sunny Essex today. How you doing, Dave?
I'm really good. How are you?
Is it sunny?
The sun hasn't quite risen just yet.
I know.
It's having a lie-in.
It's really early. I really appreciate you, getting up early to be
It
part
does
of
me good.
1990 series, and you're a busy boy. Hey, you guys have been
Yeah.
busy recently, doing really good stuff. Dave, we met via the Three Principles community,
We did.
and I think we first met at the Viva event, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
We missed you there this year, but your mum and dad were there.
They were. That was
Yeah.
a big moment for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love it when the mums and dads and the brothers and sisters and sons and daughters kind of, come along and.
It was the first thing they've ever been to off their own bat. So it was, it was special for me.
Yeah, they're really nice. It was lovely to meet
I'm
them.
lucky.
Yeah.
I am very lucky.
You're a chip off the old block, hey?
Sometimes.
Yeah, no, it was.
Sometimes it shows.
Oh no, it was really lovely to meet them, Dave. It's always been since the first time we ever had a conversation or a chat. I was always really impressed by your lovely presence and your wonderful stories, and I loved hearing you when you used to talk about your passion of trees. And when you talk about nature, it's so, for me, it's so heart touching. It's so beautiful. Because you were a tree surgeon.
I was, yeah.
Or you are a tree surgeon?
No, I'm not anymore. No.
Not anymore, but
No.
that's what you were. And there's something so beautiful, I think, when I hear people talking about this understanding and just talking it through the stories related to nature. And you do that so well.
It was always something that I was fascinated by, Amanda. Is nature. It's like when I grew up, I've grown up in the English Lake District, and my whole life's been outdoors, and my family adore nature. So I've been brought up with it in my psyche. And I studied it at college. I studied ecology, but I failed. At the age of 19, 20, I failed my college course. I got heavily into drugs, and I ended up with depression, and so it was a bit of a blow to my system. That's something I was so good at. I failed. I failed my college course, and I didn't have the motivation to kind of continue. And depression was something that kind of carried me. I carried, should I say, throughout my life. And within 6 months of failing my college course, I found myself in prison for violence. So I genuinely thought my life was over. It's like, how do you come back from that? How do you come back from a drug habit I couldn't shift? Failing my college course, ending up in prison at a young age, and I lost an awful lot of friends, faced an awful lot of judgment. So I did. I met somebody, and you talk about serendipity an awful lot. And serendipity. I can't see if I can say this word. Serendipitously. Is that right? Serendipitously. I came across a man, and he told me he was a tree surgeon, and I thought I would love to do that. A very egoic decision based on the idea that tree surgeons have big muscles. They're very attractive to women. They earn lots of money, and they get to play around with chainsaws hanging from trees, and everybody loves them. Very, very based in ego was that decision, and it was a decision that kind of took me, and I had an amazing adventure with it. I did it for 17 years. Yeah. And throughout that time, I had my highs and my lows of running my own business. I couldn't get employment, it appeared, because I couldn't, because of my criminal record and my lack of qualifications. So I had to become self-employed and start my own business. Biggest kick up my ass I ever got was going to prison. But depression, like I say, was something that kind of I carried throughout my life, and anxiety, and and anger. Anger was my kind of vent for my depression. I used to just get so overwhelmed and scream and shout, and I'd like Tourette's-like outbursts, and I was violent, and I was aggressive, and I was an intimidator. I was a hard man. I did get the big muscles, and I did get the big attitude that went along with those muscles, sadly. And so in 2012, 2011, 2012, I found myself at a serious low point in life, and I was seeing therapists and doctors, and it was something that I'd kind of done throughout my life. From time to time, was end up seeing therapists, doctors, psychiatrists, medication, and just to try and help me through the day. And yeah, it was during this time that I got introduced. It was during this time that I found that I actually had an affair, and my marriage broke down, and I was married to an amazing woman, and I met another amazing woman. It turns out there's amazing people everywhere, and I couldn't kind of see past that. And it was during this time I had the biggest breakdown of my life, and I found life very difficult. I was suicidal. I was good with knots and ropes, and I was planning on hanging myself. But I got introduced to these principles, and it was again serendipitously, you could say, a miracle. I just consider it to be a miracle. When I look at this, when I look back at my life, I little miracles just trickling in. And it was a lady called Sue who introduced me to these principles, and she's one of my greatest friends now. She's 74 now, and one of my best friends. But she was a therapist who came across Sid's work and had her own experience, and she just called me up one day and said, I need you to come and look at a tree. So I went round, and she said, do you know why I've got you here? Because there wasn't a tree in the garden, so I was instantly pissed off. I was furious. She said, do you know why I've got you here? And I said, no, I'm guessing it's not for a tree. And she said, no, it's not. She said, come inside and have a cup of tea. And she said, if I told you why to get you here, you wouldn't have come, would you? And I said, I don't know. So why have you got me here? She said, because I've been told I need to teach you something. I said, and who's told you that? She said, the universe. That was like the worst person she could have said, or the worst thing she could have said. And I was once again furious. But there was a twinkle in her eye. And it was enough to humble me, to come off my high horse and to listen. It took me 9 weeks to see it. But this is where my kind of love of nature expanded. I always hated humanity, because humanity is a cancer on the face of the planet as far as I was concerned. And the world would be better off without human beings. I remember this day, I'd listened to Sid for the first time in my life. Sue would run me up and give me an arse kicking. And I'd listened to Sid, and she said, you've never listened to him. Why have you never done anything I've ever asked you to do? And then this morning I typed in Sydney Banks, and I went for a walk and listened to him, went for a walk. And it was on this walk where it just so happened that there was something Sid had said that was kind of resonating within myself. It was like, it was there. There was something kind of boiling. And it was in that, just as I stopped on this walk, I noticed a jackdaw, a crow, that just caught my eye as it flew over. And suddenly everything that Sid had been speaking about suddenly hit me right in the heart. And I can't explain what happened in that moment. It's not something I can put into words. It was something far beyond the everyday kind of experience that Dave encounters. But it changed my entire life in that very moment. It changed this experience of life in that very moment. Suddenly life was put into a perspective. The hard man died, the family protector died, the man who needed to be the best at everything died, the anxiety died, the depression died. And there's a saying in the Bible, it says the truth will set you free. Truth will set you free. And it was like in that moment I I was privileged enough to touch it, to bear witness, to observe it, to be it. And when it was over, that experience was over, I found myself in this space where the world wasn't anything I recognized anymore. It wasn't a terrible place. People weren't cancer, they were beautiful. I was beautiful for the first time in my life. I was beautiful. I fell in love with myself. And for a man who was the most terrifying man, the most terrifying person he knew was himself, that was such a revelation. It was to see that human beings are nature. The very thing that I loved, we are.
Yeah.
We are that. We are all an expression of a divine force. And this, and it, why my love of nature became so great after that moment, and so much deeper, was the recognition of everything is truth. Everything is this beautiful force of life. Nature is like an expression of it. We are an expression of it. Everything is an expression of this God force, whatever anybody wants to call it. It really doesn't matter. And when I started to gain insight into this, it was like that wasn't a goal. When I look back at that, it was like people seem to have an idea that there's a goal to get to with the principles. It wasn't a goal. It was simply a new beginning. And there is no goal. It was like, it was this new beginning that was born in that moment of life. And it was one where insight would be brought in moments of the most ridiculous times. It would just be like revelation. And nature was one of the things that kept on kind of revealing itself to me. It was, and the more I saw into nature, the more I saw into Dave. The more that I saw that Dave is exactly the same thing as a tree. It was the day I stopped cutting trees. Wow. I remember being up this tree, and again, in ridiculous places for insight. Not that there is such a thing, but I remember this sentence coming into my mind, and it just said, let me see if I can get this right. Awareness. I noticed when I cut a tree, they are aware. Awareness is, oh God, it's all wrong now. I'll come back to that. I noticed that when I cut a tree, they were aware and they responded. They are built from intelligence. And this intelligence literally courses through all life. It was the same thing when I saw the jackdaw. What happened with the jackdaw was when I observed the jackdaw, it just so happened to look at me. It was aware of my presence on its landscape. And it was the same thing again, where what I am, or what Dave is the same thing that the jackdaw is. It was a conscious state that thinks. And it was in that moment of revelation where I started to put words to it afterwards. It took a couple of weeks to the moment when I woke up on that walk. I started to put words to it afterwards. And the only words that I could really put to it was that everything is this conscious state, thinking. And in that there was no, it's like we live in this world of infinite things. And I say infinite things because things are being born and things are dying. There is this continuous creation and destruction happening. There's this continuous birth and death happening, and it's an infinite thing. And for all my life, I had been so mesmerized by the things that were created, the world, the things in the world, the thoughts, the feelings, everything that is creation, everything that is manifest. I'd spent my life observing it. And when you start to observe infinite creation, life becomes really, really complicated, because all of a sudden there's a million reasons for why things are happening. it was where I was getting lost with psychologically. It was a lostness psychologically was my depression, because I saw an infinite amount of happenings, and I felt overwhelmed and bemused and despondent to life. But the gift that Sid brought to this world was a very, very simple message that once it was awakened within myself, it was like life suddenly became simple. And from simplicity, it's like it's not that we don't get lost in the complexity. I've very much got an intellect and ego. I can find myself very much caught up in it from time to time, but to simply have had that realization, and then have that to fall back onto, to remember, to simply remember, oh, you know what you're doing, you know what's happening. It's like you get to come into this being, and I think Jesus spoke of it as the virgin birth. And when Jesus spoke of the virgin birth, he wasn't speaking about Mary was a virgin. He was speaking about a rebirth within the being of somebody who gets to have that divine awakening, a rebirth, a virgin birth, a rebirth without intercourse, a birth from within. And when I listened to Jesus now, it was like I could totally get what he was talking about, and he was talking complete sense. And what I love about what Sid brought to the world was that he brought to the world a very simple conversation that allows people to gain access to this.
Yeah, that is the difference, isn't it, Dave? That there's something about the normal folk. I think we've complicated it more than.
Great.
When you go back, I'll put a link on this talk to the Sydney Banks, sidbanks.com, because all the lectures are on there now. The Hawaiian lectures, the Washington lectures, the Long Beach lectures, and I think we do the best that we all can in trying to share it. But even we complicate it.
Absolutely right. So easily done.
Yes, it is. But the way that you shared that, thank you for sharing your story.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for thinking of me.
It's so lovely. I love just listening to you, listening to you talk, because there's something in the way that you share that it touches me, and I listen and I hear something. So
bless you, love. Well, it's lovely to speak to you.
You too, and I want to thank you for all the great talks that I've heard you do, and you guys are doing a great job. So just carry on. Carry on.
Thank you for doing this and doing all the hard work that you do.
It's nothing.
Not to you, but to others. I think it's
what this little 90 and 90 series is nothing.
You're going to miss it, aren't you?
I don't. You know what? The crazy thing is, I've already got this next project in my head.
180 and 180.
it's like I don't know, that's just the way, it's just the way it is, the way that something's speaking to me. Something else is like, take a break, just take a break. I'm also doing the iHeart training, Dave. I know that you
fantastic.
So yeah. I'm bringing that into Spain. We've started our training, and we'll be launching that in February, but so that's been also amazing.
They've been getting some beautiful results of the iHeart team.
Yeah, so between
Jen and I are definite ambassadors for them.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so between us all, we're doing all right. We're doing our bit, aren't we?
Yeah, it's happening. I think this is it. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
It can't be stopped now. It's off, and
yeah,
the world is heading for a new perspective.
Yeah, a change, and it's amazing to be around people like yourself and Jen and everybody who are part of this community, which has become a big part of my extended family. So that is my thanks to all of you for always being there when
we're lucky, aren't we? We've got good friends.
Really, really, really lucky, and you share so beautifully, Dave.
Oh, bless you, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for getting up early.
You are welcome. Beautiful way to start my day.
Thank you, my lovely, and I'll see you when I'm looking at you. Lots of love.
Look forward to it.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you all. Bye bye bye.